All right, we're here with Brandon Lilly at Super Training Gym in Sacramento as he prepares for meet this Sunday, where he's going to crush some big weights. Brandon, explain the cube method to us. Just kind of give us the rundown of what the hell it is.
Basically, it's a modification of all the training principles that I've ever used in my life. Kind of a bodybuilder meets West Side meets just hardcore old school training, with the emphasis of having one lift per week be heavy. So in week 1, you're going to have a heavy day of squat, you're going to have a rep day on the bench, and a speed day on the deadlift. And then everything shifts forward the next week. So you're going to have a speed day on the squat, a heavy day on the bench, and a rep day on your deadlift. And then the next week it'll be a rep day on the squat, a speed day on the bench, and a heavy day on the deadlift. The 4th day of every week is kind of like a bodybuilding day or a cleanup day where you go in. I have 3 recommendations for people. I used to say they're kind of like mandatory, but I like to have people do overheads, bicep, and calves on Sunday because they've really been neglected a lot in powerlifting routines. And for me, competing raw and in gear, I feel like I need to be complete, top to bottom. I don't need any weak areas. I don't need any holes that can be exposed. So for me, Sunday, I dedicate to those movements, and then anything else that's weak. I always do lats because I feel like lats are probably the most underappreciated but most important body parts you have. Been doing a lot of tricep work lately, a lot of glute work. So the 4th day is just kind of clean up. You do 6 or 7 body parts that just need direct work, do 3 to 4 reps, whatever. And, I don't use any bands or chains. I don't use a box. It's all straight barbell weights. Very, very simple, very old school kind of training. And it's very effective just because of the recovery aspect of it. So many people on other methods get beat down trying to hit a PR every single week. And on this method, even on your heavy day, you might have to hit a PR for a 5 or a triple or a double or something like that, but you're not always chasing singles. Singles come on the platform. That's where the total counts. That's where the big PRs count, so we save it for the platform.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. So if you have a max day, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to black out and like nearly die. You can have a little left in the tank. What's some of your recommendations on that?
Well, it's all, and people get so wrapped up in the percentages in any method, and that's happened somewhat on the cube. I mean, they'll send me emails or questions and online, and they'll ask, well, you say that I need to do 5 sets of 3, or let's say you said about a max day, you say I need to do 1 set of 2 with like 90%. Well, that's fine if you can do 3 or 4, whatever. You want to kind of push yourself, but it doesn't have to always be that, like you said, that blackout kind of set. Go by what your body tells you, go by what your body feels, but adhere to the rule. We don't miss reps or we don't miss weight, and the PRs only count on the platform. So don't do something today that's going to remove from what you do on the platform in 5 weeks. I get really sick in my own training. In the past, I would have 10 weeks where I'm hitting PR after PR after PR, and then I go to the meet and I bomb, or I go to the meet and I struggle and I don't put up the numbers that I know I can hit because I'm all used up from the last 10 weeks of training. So that's what I try to keep people to change their focus. If you're a competitive powerlifter, the only place that matters is the platform. So do everything that you can in training to build up to the platform. If that means leaving a rep in the tank and walking out the door, that's fine. If that means doing an extra rep just to feel confident, that's fine. But don't push yourself to the point of total exhaustion, total failure every single time on heavy day.
Ed Cohn has mentioned before that he's always trained heavy in training, but never to a max. Is that kind of what you're alluding to? Maybe not say never to a max, but just basically trying to avoid failure, trying to have lifts that are kind of in your wheelhouse, basically.
Exactly, and the thing that I tell people, or that I truly believe in, is that 10 weeks is what you need to mentally and physically prepare for most people for a meet. And in that time, you're preparing yourself, you're laying the foundation work for that meet. So you want to train heavy, you want to get that weight in your hands, and say 70% for 6 to 8 reps is a kind of equivalent of heavy as 90% for 2 reps. It's a hard, challenging weight for that many reps. It doesn't always have to be 90+% to be heavy. Those last few reps can do things for your body. They'll give you muscular growth. They'll give you tendon and ligament strength. They'll also just give you confidence with weight in your hand. And that's the one thing that I think other powerlifting routines have neglected is submaximal rep work. And for me, the people on the cube, that's the one direct feedback that I get is they feel challenged with these weights, and they feel more confident with the maximal weights because they've become more confident with submaximal weight. So, it's all about building confidence and belief in yourself. I don't like guys to miss weight at all. I tell to people, take a jump if you have to, or if you feel good for it, but you better be damn sure that you're going to get it before you do it, because that's the kind of attitude you have to have on the platform. You don't want to say, well, I just hit 475 and I want 500. I hit 475 and I know I can get 500. You have to do like I said, you have to lay the groundwork. So when you step up onto the platform, there's not a doubt in your mind that the weights that you're going to be attempting are going to be there and you've done the work to do it. Like for a guy that benched 425 last meet, automatically he's going to say, well, I want to bench 450 or 475. There's nothing wrong with benching 445, but so many guys get so wrapped up in those 50s, 75s, and 100s that they will lose progress chasing a number. Just let the training guide what you do in your meet, and you'll always be successful.
When is you've had a lot of success over the last about 2 years or so. When's the last time you've missed a lift in training that you can remember?
Just out and out missed a weight would be just prior to starting breaking away and doing my own thing in the cube. That would have been prior to the XPC last March.
What was your total around that time?
To be honest, I was down. I would have been lucky to total 2,400 probably, and I was a train wreck. Whenever I went to Lexington, Chuck tried to have me squat 800 pounds in full gear to his depth call, and I couldn't do it. And I just, not too long ago squatted 1,000 pounds in a meet, but for me it was an eye opener to actually squat to good depth. And so I started all over. I started it from a clean slate and started working back up. And as embarrassing as it was, Chuck wouldn't let me squat more than 400 pounds until I could do it for 8 sets of 3 to depth raw. He would not let me add a pound.
So is that about where you started? You said you did about 400 pounds for sets of 3. Were they difficult?
Oh, it was impossible. It took me 3 months to do 8 sets of 3 reps correctly before he would let me go on.
So you went from doing 400 to doing around 800, 826.
Yeah, 400 pounds to 826 raw, and then I think this Sunday I should be good for a little bit more than that. And it all comes from going back and starting all over and really focusing on doing things the right way and the hard way. Chuck is a big believer in, you do things the hardest way you can, and in the meet, that's going to be easy. So, I got my depth in check, I got my training in check, and I got myself in check. I quit lying to myself. I quit patting myself on the back for high squats. I quit patting myself on the back for short lock benches. I started deadlifting full range instead of, high-fiving myself for, block pulls that were PRs and things like that. I made everything harder than it had to be to get better.
Well, we got a couple more minutes here to chat, but what are some things quickly that you've done with ab training? Seems like kind of people are sometimes confused on some of the supplemental work. Is there anything specific that you feel that's really carrying over well to the deadlift and the squat?
For me, the overheads without a belt, standing overheads, are like you and I just talked a few minutes ago. They're brutal on your core. Walking out squats without a belt, deadlifting without a belt, planks. That was something that was referred to me from Brian Carroll. We had done them in the past, but he suggested to me that I bring them back into my programming, and I did, and they're great. Anything that will absolutely challenge you to stay tight, in the position, and actually doing the lifts in that position without a belt. People don't realize how much you can depend on a belt. When you take that off, you're just totally exposed. So don't go out thinking that you're going to just automatically pull 95% of what you pull right now without a belt. Start small, start at 70%. And one of the things that Ed Cohn told me to do was do things as hard as you can, as long as you can in your training. Warm up your deadlift double overhand. And then when that starts to give out, switch to your natural grip. Warm up your deadlift and your squat without a belt. And as soon as you start feeling like you can't do anymore, put your belt on. Don't become dependent on those things. Make your body work, and you'll get a lot stronger for it, especially in the core.
Where can I buy this Cube method?
You can get the Cube ebook at www.jtsstrength.com/store. You can always hit me up at brandonlilly3@yahoo.com or on Facebook through inbox. I do training programs. I answer countless questions for free. I have a Facebook group dedicated to the Cube method where there's tons of great people in there that are on the Cube, who've done it. They answer questions as well as I ever could. And there's about 1,500 people strong in there right now that are communicating awesome information back and forth. There's a lot of newbies. There's a lot of advanced lifters. Just had a guy today squat 771 for a double, and he pulled 820 last week. He's been on the Cube for 2 cycles now. So it is working at all levels, from beginner to advanced.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.